Yeah, welcome everyone. So today we will go completely with theory and what are all the prerequisites we need to have this course going smoothly. So for this, uh, just we will understand first what is the underlying platform, then how the apps are being built on the platform. Basically, DevOps are the one who are managing the infrastructure, who are providing the infrastructure to the uh, development teams. Okay, so let me take a quick paint. So yeah, so for the DevOps architect, who are the customers? Okay, so the customers are the one who are the dev teams. Okay, so they will be developing the applications, okay, which have some core business logic and have some external uh, users as a clients. Okay, so now what DevOps teams does is they provide all the infrastructure. So when come to infrastructure, okay, yes, as a service we will be giving the infrastructure, but the thing is when we provide the infrastructure also we also need to develop something. Okay, so we also need to have automations in place to automate the requests given by the dev team. Okay, so to modify the infrastructure or to orchestrate the infrastructure, so lot many things are there on as our responsibilities. Okay, so first, so when we say infrastructure, okay, so the first thing is what the hardware we are going to choose. Okay, so where the hardware actually lies in. Okay, so when coming to that, what happens is organizations have will expect two types of hardwares. Okay, one is private cloud, okay, and one is public cloud. So what does this o- private cloud mean? Okay, so private cloud means that they have some on premise, we will call actually. So on premise means they are having their infrastructure uh, within their organization. Okay, so they maintain their infrastructure uh, and they consume their infrastructure. Public cloud in the sense, so public cloud is like it is in the vendors uh, side. Okay, so they are public to availability, so you can consume this cloud as per your requirement. Okay, but uh, companies who have a higher sensitive data, they prefer to use their private cloud, but organizations which can uh, which are which are not much sensitive, I can tell, but still, public cloud vendors are are trying to convince the organizations saying that the security is very high in the public cloud, so no data breaches can happen. But still, yeah, the environment is like private cloud and public cloud. So there may be situations like using hybrid cloud, so where they will be using private cloud, they will be using public cloud, both, so their application will be running. Okay, so uh, this is how the infrastructure would be in the enterprise organizations. Okay, now the DevOps teams should uh, understand the dev teams requirement, and accordingly we need to uh, 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 provision the infrastructure, orchestrate the infrastructure, maintain the infrastructure. Okay, so all these will be taken care by our DevOps teams. Okay, so for this, uh, what is the underlying like, see, when you see the roles, okay, so we have uh, like the roles like system dev, okay, in DevOps. The other one is software developer, software dev, okay. Then site SRE dev, okay. So what is the difference between these three? Who is system developer? Who is software developer? Who is SRE developer? So coming to system developer. So system developer is the one who will concentrate on very down to earth, means in a Linux kernel level, he will be handling the situations. Let's say, let's take an examples like, suppose a VM is getting disk, his disk out of space. Okay, then how we need to handle that situation? Who need to handle that situation? So that situation is being handled by our uh, system dev engineers. Okay, so they will uh, work on very core things which is related to platform. Okay, so we need to observe how the Linux and Unix behaviors are there with respect to the kernel level changes or the hardware level changes. Okay, that is where system developers will work. Okay, software developers. So developers, what they do in uh, DevOps, so they will be preparing the automations. Okay, where they will try to make it more reliable. Okay, more optimized. Okay, more stable. So whatever the piece of code running for automating this infrastructure, what I said. Okay, so software developers will take care of all the reliability and other aspects of that software. Okay, SRE developers. So SRE developers are one who take care of cloud related infrastructure. So infrastructure is already available. Okay, what we need to do is we need to have a wrap around that infrastructure using uh, cloud features. Okay, so when that comes into situation, the SRE, site reliability engineers, will take care of using wrapping up that uh, infrastructure with cloud features. Okay, so this is all various of course there are other designations also, like platform developers are platform developers are there, core DevOps engineers are there. Okay, so many others are there, but these three are a little bit uh, very specific to the role. So that is the reason why I have highlighted this. And basing on your when you go for interviews, also check what word has been used in your JD, and accordingly prepare for that JD. Okay, so if it is system dev, try to explain how you use Python for system development. So for a very low level uh, infrastructure, so how you are handling that. Okay, so this is how our DevOps engineers will be having the designations, and yeah, this is what the infrastructure we will be handling also. Okay, fine. So let's move on uh, to a particular um infrastructure part, that is VM, because we can start with VM. um, I'm going with again a new slide. Just give me some time to save this. Okay, fine. So now we understood what is the resources for a DevOps engineer. Okay, what all resources will be available for a DevOps engineer. Now, how to organize or how to work with that infrastructure. Okay, so for that, uh, let's start with the VM, because whatever we do, that will reflect on the virtual machine only. So we need to understand what the virtual machine is and how uh, the applications will be running on the virtual machine. Okay, so when we take a virtual machine, okay, so generally it will have a hardware, things like CPU, RAM, what is the SSD, what type of storage we are using, whether it is a NAS storage, NAT storage. Okay, so there are different aspects of VM hardware, where basing on the context we need to learn those aspects. Okay, but in our course we are not uh, much concentrating on the hardware, because our C is writing Python automation for the tools what we use. So I'm neglecting all those. Just consider this as a VM. Now, uh, what I mentioned is like the developer applications will be running on this VM, right? So when I say the developer applications will be running on the VM, let us understand how actually the application would be. Okay, so so when I say the application is running, means some user is consuming that services, right? So how he can consume a service running in this machine, how he can access this machine? So we have a ports inside. Okay, so if anybody knew the answers, you can tell it. Okay, that that would be really encouraging. So once we have an application inside, okay, how a user will access this application? Using the ports. Okay, so whatever the application is running, we will expose the application via system ports. Okay, so these ports will expose the your application to the outside, and there will be the users. Of course, there is again lot of infrastructure will be there in between as a bridge for a user reaching to this port. But later on we will understand based on the context what infrastructure comes in. But for now, ideally think like you are directly reaching to the port. Okay, so now this port, uh, whatever the data is there, it will be accepting the request, and then it will be sending the request back to the will be sending a response as the request. Okay, for the request. So now let us understand how an application will be inside. Okay, so in general, how would be the applications of any development teams? What are all required? A web server. Okay, so what this web server will do, it will host the application, and it will communicate with the port to the application running inside. Okay, this is what the web server will do. So this web server will be in the VM. Whatever the requests are coming, it will via port, it will consume that, it will process that, and it will give it as a response. So one is the web server. And the next thing what is required is we have a source code running. Okay, so this is what source code. So how the web server will process? The web server requires some data, right? So what to process, how to process. Okay, so that will be taken care by this source code. Okay, so whatever the source code we write, basing on the source code, the web server will process the data. Okay, Then how do we store the user data here in an application? So for that we require a database. So we need a database where it will store the data. Okay, so there may be a temporary data where that may not require DB. So you can store it in some object storage or boot volume, what we call. Okay, so any volume we can store, that is temporary data. Okay, whatever the data you want to store permanently, that should go to database. So like that, if you want to store permanently files, for that also database are there. Okay, so no SQL database will be there where it will be helpful. Okay, so this is how a application will be running inside the VM. Okay, it will have a web server, it will have a source code where it will be the compiler will be executing the source code, and we have a database where we will be storing the data. Okay, now then what all the DevOps engineers are responsible for this application to run? How a DevOps engineers are responsible, okay, for applications to run here? So yeah, now we can you can add the points. What all comes into picture for the applications to run? How DevOps teams should help? Deployment. Okay. So how the source code is coming to this VM? So that is we take care. Okay. So we use some CI/CD process. Okay. Uh, uh, where we will be getting the source code from a repository, and then we will be deploying it to the VM. Okay, so we need, for this to do, we need to have a source code manager. Okay, so here I will be using a GitLab source code manager. Okay, so I would request everyone to uh, have a GitLab account so that I can add you all to this GitLab. Okay, fine. So uh, I'm noting down what all you require, so you can spend some time, and if you fulfill all these requests, okay, we can easily go with our next sessions. Okay, so fine. So let us come back to our point. So this source code manager, here what it does is it will have all the source code given by the developers, and it's our responsibility to deploy the source code here and uh, maintain the application stable. Okay, okay, fine. So deployment is over. Next, what? So can you tell me what situations make this VM unstable? Okay, so requests are coming in, this web server is processing the request, it is sending back the responses. Okay, everything is good, but what makes this VM unstable?
High resource utilization.
Yes, correct. High utilization means when the traffic is high. Okay, so the VM health may go down because it may not have the enough resources to run the processes. Okay, so yeah, good. So yeah, still some more we can figure out, like storage. Okay, so now if the storage is the whatever the RAM memory is going out, okay, it is getting consumed. Okay, so it may run out of memories. Okay, so basically this situation occurs when there are some logs for the application. So whenever the application create some logs. Okay, what happens is over the time when it is being utilized, the log size gets increased. Okay, so when the log sizes gets increased, then uh, what happens is uh, uh, it may run out of memory. So we need to take care of how we need to handle the logs. Okay, still, then installations. Okay, so if we are installing some applications which have queues in it, okay, like RabbitMQ or any message brokers, okay, Redis, anything, such things. What happens is the memory keeps on getting consumed. Okay, so we need to see what type of queues are running in the VM and how to manage them. Okay, so here my point is why I am highlighting all these. Later on, I will start DevOps tools related to these topics. Okay, how which tool is managing what. Okay, so that is my ultimate agenda. So but you need to understand why we are using these tools. Okay, that's the reason why I'm explaining all this. Okay, so we have logs, we have queues, we have traffic. Okay, so for this to automate, we DevOps is providing us a lot of tools for us. Okay, so we can use those tools and then we can uh, come out of a solution, or we can resolve these situations using those tools. Okay, fine. So apart from this, when I mentioned like code has been deployed and all the VM is stable, but how to install these tools? Okay, how to install these tools and how to orchestrate our VM, that is the other important thing, because whatever the source code is running, it may use any third party vendor softwares to compile this business logic. Okay, so in order to run this business logic, if it needs some third party installs, then we need to do those third party installs also. Okay, so for that reason we have some orchestration tools like uh okay, let us
Ansible.
yes, Ansible, Chef we have. Okay, but yeah, I will not note down the tools, but I'm mentioning it like installs. Okay, so there needs some installs we need to do for this what for the dependencies of the application software to run. Okay, apart from this, what other we need to look into, like uh, when we are spinning up the VM. Okay, apart from the hardware, we need to choose what OS we need to do. Okay, so what type of OS they are expecting. So they what version of OS, if it is a Linux, what version of Linux they are using. Okay, so these all we need to take care. At the same time, on top of OS, what are all the, again, firmware packages. Okay, what are all the firmware packages we need to install to run this VM in a good shape. Okay, so these are all some of the points I have collected. Okay, where our DevOps tools will be running in these points. Okay, so now let us uh, quickly see what are the tools also available for this to uh, to automate everything. Okay, so how the tools will handle these situations and what tools will handle. Okay, so now coming to the tools. Okay, so for the OS firmware and everything, what we do is we have the images. Okay, what we call is the images. So these images we need to spin up. Okay, but anywhere apart from the images, we have lot many things to consider. Okay, but image plays a major role. Here coming to tools, we use Terraform. Okay, when it is specific to AWS, the cloud providers are providing their own softwares again. Okay, so we can use them. If it is AWS, I can say like CloudFormation is one of the thing where it can create the infrastructure for you, but mostly we will be using Terraform, where we can be creating the infrastructure. Okay, so that is fine. Then once we create the infrastructure, how to perform actions on that infrastructure. Okay, so we want to start the host, we want to stop the host, we want to hibernate it, or we want to add some keys to it, key files to it. Okay, so anything if you want to do, you can you can do the actions with the Python SDK, where the every public cloud provider is is providing with the Python SDK, where we can consume it and we can create the automations on top of it. Okay, so this is all related to OS and firmware, how we will be doing the DevOps work. Okay, in order to maintain them. Okay, so here as like our uh,
Parmeshwar, I have one query.
okay,
These tasks can be achieved even through Ansible, but how Python will differ?
fine. So see, when you are running with Ansible, you are again considering a bunch of hosts. Okay, so you
Hmm.
whatever the hosts are there, and there are some drawbacks in Ansible to run some actions on top of cloud, like when you are not supposed to run Ansible on Windows hosts, right? And that is not the only thing which we have, but Ansible, we have a tag culture, role culture, okay, which are very what user friendly with installing the applications, like what you say, installing any packages you need. If you use Python SDK, what happens is, let's say you want to drop a mail. If you are
Hmm.
unable to start an instance, that you cannot do with Ansible, right? So you
Hmm.
need
Hmm.
to have your automation running in place. Okay, so
Okay.
with Python SDK, whatever action you do, prior to that action, you can have uh, your business logic. So somebody is application, or someone is triggering the action from a web UI. So all that you can interface when you are writing with Python SDK. Okay, we can do the same thing with Ansible, but Ansible will not cope up with cope up cope up the automations. Okay, apart from this, like
Hmm.
yeah, Ansible is completely for a orchestration purpose, where we have tags and roles that will be mostly used in the organizations. Okay,
Mhm.
uh, got my point.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, fine. So yeah, package installation. So when you are going with the package installation, okay, so we will be using uh, Ansible, Chef, Puppet. Okay, so let me clarify here now. Anyway, I have spoke about Ansible now. Okay, so where we will be using Chef also. So okay, so what type of situations we will be using Chef? Uh, so whenever you have image level or kernel level upgrades or something like that, better to go with Chef, because Chef is a managed of cookbooks and versioning cookbooks. Okay, so that is a good thing in Chef. So organizations consider Chef for OS upgrades, firmware patches. Okay, so any such things are there. Generally, they will go with this Chef. Okay, again, next another tool is there like Puppet. So Puppet, how it will be? So Puppet have a master and slave mechanism, where you can get information of slaves very quickly through master. Okay, so whenever you want to roll out a certain template kind of thing. Let's say you have an Apache running and it has a conf file. You have Nginx running, it have a conf file. You have some Logstash running, it has a conf file. Log4j running, you have a conf file. So wherever there are uh, configuration files required to put it in appropriate places, okay, then Puppet would be a good tool. Okay, so when I'm going with these tools, I will explain you more in detail, but just here my point is like, so basing on the situation, basing on the context, you need to choose the tool. Okay, so that is the reason why I'm explaining the pros and cons of each tool. Okay, coming to deployment and CI/CD. So Jenkins CI/CD is a famous tool which is rolling out, and lot many Blue Ocean has come in Jenkins now. But organizations again, they are going with their own deployment tools. Okay, but Jenkins CI/CD is the most famous one. Other than that, nowadays organizations are using Git CI/CD also. Uh, the reason behind this is, anyway, when we are using GitLab as a source code repository, some team will be working for that GitLab to be stable, right? So the same team can be working on Git CI, provisioning the Git CI/CD also. So in order not to maintain two teams, one maintaining Jenkins and one maintaining GitLab, they are clubbing both the teams, and they are making Git CI/CD as the deployment tool for GitLab uh, source code repository. Okay, so this is how the deployment is happening. Okay, fine. So we have discussed some of the tools, right? Here I will quickly go to the logs also. Logstash or and Log4j is also one of the tool to archive all the logs. Okay, so these are some of the tools where we will be working with. Apart from this, Cloud APS, many other things are there. But to understand in brief what the infrastructure is, I have explained these tools. Okay. Now I want to quickly jump into Python. Okay. So once as we have discussed these tools, how to automate these tools. Okay, at various levels of these tools, we need to write Python scripts. Okay, for these tools to get automated. Okay, so now coming to Python. Okay, we will discuss more about Python in next coming 2 weeks, I believe. Okay, once we are done with the Python, then we can again come back to our tools. Okay, so for our Python to run on Linux, okay, the first and foremost thing is you need Linux in your laptop. Okay, so I assume that if you are using a Windows laptop, okay, so you need to uh, what you need to set up a Linux host inside the laptop. Okay, to uh, practice and run all these softwares inside that Linux host. Okay, for that, what I recommend is a Vagrant setup. Okay, so Vagrant is one tool where you can uh, run a Linux VM in your host. Okay, so I'm not showing how to install Vagrant. Okay, I will be providing you these links. Okay, so you can um, install the Vagrant seeing this video. Okay, but what I can say is Vagrant, if you type this, you should be getting the Vagrant version. Okay, so go for the latest one. Okay, so uh, once you get this output, okay, it is sure that the Vagrant has been installed successfully. Okay, next, Python 3. Okay, for the next 2 weeks we will be working on Python 3. Okay, so now for now case, you can install the Python on your Windows laptop directly, and you have a YouTube link for this, how to install Python. but it's very simple thing. Go to Python downloads, download the Python. Okay, but let us discuss about the version. Okay, so I'm very particular about the version because when I say Python 3, there are a couple of things here. Not only for Python, any software you are installing, what is the stable version of the software and what is the release version of the software. Okay, so now currently you have some Python 3.9 as the release version, but we will be not going with the release version, we will be going with the stable version. So Python 3.6 is the stable version currently. So how do we decide this Python 3.6 as the stable version? Okay, so when I say the infrastructure, okay, when you get the images like uh so what type of images we have in general? Okay, we have uh like Red Hat, Linux, okay, or else Ubuntu, or else CentOS. But enterprises will be using either Red Hat Linux or Ubuntu OS. Okay, so uh, Red Hat is a licensed version, so we cannot install that. So we can have a similar type of CentOS. Okay, but coming to any Ubuntu or Red Hat, you see when you install the VM, the VM will get pre-installed Python. Okay, they will be getting Python pre-installed in your uh, OS images. So that version is a stable version because OS itself will be using that version and they will be running a, a underlying uh, kernel task. Okay, so when as it is pre-built and OS is running on that Python, we can consider that Python as the stable version, and we can also run our applications top of that Python stable version. uh, and the thing is we should not remove that Python from that VM. Okay, so if you change the Python uh, version, there may be chance of getting that image broken. Okay, so we should not remove that, but still you can have multiple versions of Python running in your VM. Okay, so going forward we will see how to run multiple Python versions. Okay, so for Windows install you can see this uh, YouTube link, but for Linux I will tell you what are all uh, how the enterprises are will be installing it and how they will be using it, why multi Python environment is required. I will be explaining that going forward. Okay, so for just practicing purpose you can go ahead and install in your Windows. Okay, so this is how. Yeah.
Is it mandatory to use Vagrant setup, or can we use Oracle virtual box and we can have a Fedora or CentOS in that?
Hmm, no, why I'm saying this is if you go with virtual means Vagrant inside will be using virtual box only, but if you directly install you are using VirtualBox, the problem is you cannot you should again manually mount all the directories inside to your VM. Okay, that will be a big headache. So whatever the code you write, again you will be writing the code outside and that should be mounted, or else what you should do is you should install all your IDE and everything inside of that Fedora. Okay,
Hmm.
but again
Okay.
when you come to an organization level you cannot
Mhm.
use such concepts there because whatever the IDE you will be using, it will be connecting to the remote hosts also. Okay, so when you move that IDE inside of a VM, then you should make that VM a public interfacing. Again you should install a organization VPN inside it. Okay, so that all will be burden your
Because in
laptop.
companies we do not use Vagrant, we use RHEL machines, RHEL servers. Uh,
Correct,
so
correct.
in that,
So see, in org, Vagrant will not be used on any remote machines. It will be used only on your laptops. But whenever
Mhm.
you will be connecting to the remote servers, right, in the organization. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can connect from your IDE to your remote missions also. Okay, when it is
Mm.
directly available on your laptop, because
Okay.
VPN will be there, right? If you
Yes.
again
Yes.
go inside of your Fedora, what happens is there you can connect to your organization network using again a VPN. So this will all burden. If in some case, if you
Mm.
lose that VM, all your data will be loosened. You will be lost.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it is always recommended to.
Mm.
Okay, there is my headset problem for me. Okay. So if at all you are going, yeah, when you are using a laptop environment, you have a couple of other benefits also, like uh, you will be having your content manager running, so that whatever the data you keep in your laptop, it will be stored again in your organization drive. Okay. So that's the reason, again, if you are running the VMs on top of your virtual box, if your organization detects it, and if it is licensed, again you should purchase a license for that. Okay. So there are
Mhm.
certain such limitations. So it is always better to write the source code directly on your laptop. And in if you are capable enough, you can directly have a VM, and you can mount the directory inside the VM, and you can run your software. But it's better to have Vagrant. And one more thing, a Vagrant advantage is like, suppose if you are running you whatever the installs, okay, what all installs are required, you can keep it in the Vagrant file, and you can pass it on to your team member. So your team member again need not to uh, waste his time on installing all the softwares, spinning up the VM and all those. Okay, he will simply pick your Vagrant file, he will spin up the Vagrant file, all the things will be ready for him, pre-installed. Okay, so that is another advantage of using Vagrant. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so that is the reason why I encourage Vagrant as a development practice, best practice. Okay, fine. So yeah, coming back to our point, Python. Okay, so I suggest Python 3.6 as a stable version, because the recent images, if you see like Ubuntu 20 or Rel Linux 8, okay, we have Python 3.6 installed in that. So better you also install Python 3.6, and we will be working on that. Okay, again, Python 3.5 and 3.6 has some features variance. So we need to be a bit conscious on that. Okay, fine. So yeah, going forward, what we do is we will start with Python. Okay, we will work extensively on Python for 2 weeks. Then then again we will jump on to the tools, and we will learn the tool, we will learn the automation on top of the tool. Okay, so in these 2 weeks of time, you can come with your Vagrant setup. So if anyone is facing some problems in installing that or anything, yes, we can have a one-on-one, and we can troubleshoot it, and we can resolve that. Okay, so this is how we are going to uh, make our journey in the coming next weeks. Okay, so let me know the feedback if I'm going slow, or if I'm going fast, or I'm telling the things very down to earth. If you uh, want to go, don't want to go much narrow like this, then I can, yeah, broaden the concepts also. So let me know that. And I'm giving my phone number, okay, in this chat. Okay, I think admin has kept to everyone. Please drop your email ID and contact number in organizers start. So I think you guys need to drop your email ID and contact number maybe. So please do that. Uh, yeah, I am almost done with my today's class. Okay, so please have your GitLab account set up, signed up, so that we can have a GitLab repo for us. So whatever I teach, I push it to the GitLab. Okay, as well. Whatever the assignments you do, I'm expecting you also to push back to the Git.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. I'm winding up the session. Okay. Uh, so let's back connect tomorrow.